Welcome to our channel. We're so happy to have you here. Don't forget to subscribe and help us hit our goal of 100,000 subscribers. This is the 107th U.S. Colored Infantry, pictured here in 1865. This is the top hat Abraham Lincoln was wearing the night he was assassinated. This is what an authentic mint-condition Woodstock 1969 ticket looks like. This is Althea Gibson, the first Black American to win a tennis Grand Slam title, celebrating at a parade honoring her. She won the French Open in 1956 and later won at Wimbledon and at the U.S. Open. This is what in-flight entertainment looked like in the 1960s. This is a picture from Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Can you spot Abe? The picture from 1930 shows what the Empire State Building looked like while it was under construction. This is how long it took to travel to different parts of the United States in 1800. This is the aftermath of the Great Molasses Flood of 1919, a deadly event that claimed the lives of 21 people in Boston after a container holding over 2 million gallons of molasses burst, sending a wave of molasses several feet high through the city streets. This is what the cabin of a passenger plane looked like in the 1930s. This is the interior of a Handley Page Type W plane. This is a picture of the construction workers who built the Chase Manhattan Bank posing with their work. This is what they did before happy hour. This is what the gravesite of President James Monroe looks like. This map from 1507 is the first map to ever label America as America. As you probably know, it was named in honor of Amerigo Vespucci and was the first map to depict clearly a separate Western Hemisphere with the Pacific as a separate ocean. Orgone accumulator, a device sold in the 1950s to allow a person sitting inside to attract, orgone, a massless healing energy. This is what the control panel of the Spirit of St. Louis, the plane Charles Lindbergh used on his historic flight across the Atlantic Ocean, looked like. Before modern car washes were invented, one particularly wacky idea was for cars to drive around through water in a circle. It cost 25 cents, but you can safely assume the memories lasted a lifetime. This is Emma Lillian Todd, the first woman to design an airplane. This is a picture of a meeting of the New York chapter of the Fat Men's Club, circa 1930. According to the photo's caption, pictured here are a Rockwitz, 312 pounds, comedian Eddie Carvey, 250 pounds, David Burns, 475 pounds, and F.C. Cupper, 351 pounds. Members had to be at least 200 pounds to join. Here is the oldest picture of the White House ever taken. It was taken in 1846, right around the time when the sewage was probably killing everyone inside. This is Civil War veteran Jacob Miller, a man who was shot right between the eyes and lived for 17 more years. Thomas Edison's last breath was captured and now resides in a museum. One of the biggest fads of the 1950s was phone booth stuffing, wherein a bunch of people would, stuff themselves into a phone booth. The world record at the time was 25 people stuffed into a phone booth, truly an example of the triumph of the human spirit. These are the prices from 107 years ago from a restaurant in Alabama. This is what the dorm room of two college students looked like in the 1910s. The Capitol lawn was mowed by a steam-powered lawnmower way back in 1903. This is what some of the first New York City tour buses looked like in 1904. In 1984, a giant dinosaur replica was moved via a helicopter to the Boston Museum of Science. This is what a traffic light looked like in New York City in 1929. Even traffic lights were art back in the day being 1929, of course. This is Louisa Ann Swain, the first American woman to ever vote in a general election. The vote happened in 1870, 5 decades before the 19th Amendment granted voting rights to all American women. This is apparently an 8th grade test from 1912. Are you passing it? This is what the Panama Canal looked like while under construction. This is President Lyndon B. Johnson driving an amphicar, amphibious car designed to operate on land and sea. Before he retired from baseball, the legendary Lou Gehrig auditioned for the role of Tarzan. They made him carry and a spear and everything. Apparently, he didn't get the job because of his massive legs. In 1933, A.L. Khan caught a 5,000-pound manta ray off the coast of Florida, and then he brought it to New Jersey, naturally. For 2 brief years, 1934 to 1935, the United States issued a $100,000 bill with Woodrow Wilson's big ol' mug on it. It never circulated publicly, but if it did, I would use it to buy 100,000 Arizona iced teas. Photo of Dr. Seuss sketching the Grinch for his then-upcoming book, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, in 1957. This is what Niagara Falls looks like, almost completely drained. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers partially drained Niagara Falls for 6 months in 1969 to study and prevent erosion of the American Falls. This is a wax figure of Marie Tussaud, a.k.a. Madame Tussauds. A photo of the Isleworth Mona Lisa, which some people believe is an earlier version of Leonardo da Vinci's famous Mona Lisa. It features a younger-looking woman with a similar pose and smile. However, its authenticity and origin has been the subject of debate. While some experts argue Leonardo himself painted it, others believe it could be the work of a follower. In 1911, Italian handyman Vincenzo Peruggia stole the Mona Lisa from the Louvre by hiding in a supply closet overnight and walking out with the painting under his coat. Motivated by a sense of patriotism, he believed the artwork belonged in Italy, not France. The painting was missing for 2 years before Peruggia was caught trying to sell it to an art dealer in Florence. Here's a photo of it being inspected by the Uffizi Museum's director, Giovanni Poggi, after it was recovered. The winged victory of Samothrace, an ancient Greek marble statue, was hidden in the Château de Valençay during World War II to protect it from Nazi looting. As part of the Louvre's efforts to safeguard its most precious artworks, the statue was carefully evacuated and concealed until the war ended. After the liberation of France, it was returned to the Louvre. Below are photos of how it was put back into place atop the top of the Daru staircase. CBS's Face the Nation has had many politicians and world leaders appear on the program since it debuted in 1954, but you might not know that Che Guevara was among them. In December 1964, Guevara appeared on the program while in New York. This is a photo of him taken on the show. This photo of President James K. Polk was taken in 1849 and is the first photo taken of a president of the United States while they were in office. This is the cover of the very first issue of Vogue magazine, published on December 17, 1892. Celebrities on the cover of fashion magazines isn't an entirely new phenomenon. This is Cary Grant on the cover of GQ for the September issue, 1962 issue, and Carol Channing on the cover of the Winter 1964-65 issue. Marilyn Monroe graced the cover of the very first issue of Playboy magazine in December 1953. However, she didn't pose for the magazine. The iconic issue featured a nude photo of Monroe taken years earlier in 1949, which Hugh Hefner purchased for $500 without her direct involvement. Despite the controversy, the issue was an instant hit, selling over 50,000 copies and further cementing Monroe's place in pop culture history. Marilyn Monroe graced the cover of the very first issue of Playboy magazine in December 1953. However, she didn't pose for the magazine. The iconic issue featured a nude photo of Monroe taken years earlier in 1949, which Hugh Hefner purchased for $500 without her direct involvement. Despite the controversy, the issue was an instant hit, selling over 50,000 copies and further cementing Monroe's place in pop culture history. This is the first photo of the very first broadcast of a human face transmitted on television. The photo was taken when John Logie Baird gave the world's first public demonstration of television at his laboratory in London. This is what a television set looked like in the mid-30s. TVs existed back then, but they were expensive and rare. Because of World War II, the development of television was delayed and stopped for years. Photo of a broadcast of NBC programming executive Warren Wade interviewing a Bronx schoolgirl about what she expects from television media in 1938. This is legendary architect Frank Lloyd Wright visiting the Southdale Center in Edina, Minnesota in 1956, which was the very first mall constructed in the U.S. and had opened just a couple of weeks earlier.